kind of a deleterious control. 0 is the base pair, is the original. So this is, so we take these stem cells that we've altered with the CRISPR technology, either 1 base pair, 0 base pairs, or +8. And you can see the normal, where we haven't changed the genome, has this beautiful striated cardiomyocyte-based tissue, which contracts. I'm not going to show you the movie, but it contracts at sort of a normal contracted rate, as it turns out. And then these are either disordered morphologically, the contraction is distorted as well. This was done in collaboration with William Koo, and who did the clinical part, Jim Parker, who did some of the organoid part. And then to complete the proof that this 1 base pair is the causative base pair, you can complement it in trans by putting in messenger RNA for the PAS gene, and getting restoration of this fairly well-ordered and normal contractile motion, as well as the cardiolipin and the mitochondrial. Now, I've kind of casually said that we changed 1 base pair in the genome, and it used to be that when you change 1 base pair in a genome, even for a very easy organism with a small genome like E. coli, you would change that base pair in on PCR and see that it's been changed, and that would be considered pretty dramatic to really prove that you changed it. But then, what my students do now is they sequence the entire genome, even if it's a human genome, to make sure that it's changed something else. And they'll do this multiple times for each clone. It gets a separate sequence. And sometimes you learn something from doing that. And in fact, one of the questions about the CRISPR technology, since it's shown it was only about 2 years and a couple months old, is what is the off target? And so we have rules, computational rules that are quite sophisticated, but as a rule of thumb that help you, fit it on one slide, is we try to, for the on target has 0 mismatches, meaning perfect match, and we try to avoid 1 or 2, because there is a chance that 1 or 2 mismatches, elsewhere in the genome, the CRISPR will cleave there. And then 3 is hard to avoid, so you tolerate some of those, but it will cleave there as well. And the frequency is about 5%. That is to say, if you collect together enough clones, 5% of the clones will have 1 off target. Or if you do it in a mixed population. But in this particular case, the software that we had written and we're using for various complicated, pragmatic reasons, used as a reference genome. I mean, we knew better. We had the reference genome for this thing, this my genome. And we did, but nevertheless, the reference genome that was used to design this experiment was, something anonymous out there, and just picked it up off the internet somewhere. And it turns out that reference genome does not have a SNP on chromosome 5 that I have. Heterozygous, this is just some piece of junk DNA out there, happens to have this, well-characterized SNP, or at least kind of name. I guess that's not really characterized. And what we were aiming for is chromosome X, leading 1Z. Instead, this thing made a mess out here because and so there is a site there, and it is a huge background. So 36.7% of the mutations that we found, relative to a little over 50% for the intended mutation, 36.7 were off target because we used the wrong genome. So the lesson here is, if you're going to do this kind of thing, at least right now, the current state of play, which will change in the next slide, but in the current state of play, you should use the right genome for designing your CRISPR. Not just because of the site you're trying to change, but all the sites you're trying to not change. Okay, but like I say, reality is going to be changed in just a moment here. But why is it important? What are we really worried about? You might see a lot of the literature, a lot of the people obsessing about off targets for CRISPR, which it still hasn't really shown you or told you about here. Hopefully you know about it. It's yet another gene therapy. In particular, it's yet another genome editing subset of gene therapy, rather transgenic. And what happened in gene therapy in general between 1996 and 2003 from this same group is they went from kind of ecstatic curing of so many patients with SCID X1 to two of patients dying, P4 and P5, because they had insertions of the vector containing the extra copy of the gene that was missing. And they were inserting randomly all over the genome, and two of the places that really you don't want to insert is next to the LM2 oncogene, which was inactivated and caused cancer. And these people's immune system were not in great shape for that one. So what are we worried about for Cas9? Well, 2 kinds of Cas9, or many kinds of Cas9 therapy, 2 classes we'll talk about, is nuclease or repression, let's say inactivation. And I just showed you an example of you would not want it to cleave and inactivate accidentally in any of the hundreds of tumor suppressor genes. I give a range here depending on which literature you're looking at. And there's a similar number of human oncogenes, and for experiments where you have a dead Cas9 or dCas9 with an activation domain on it, you can activate a gene that you want to do gene therapy on. And if it's off-target off the oncogene, you would activate the oncogene, and so it would be bad, just like the problems that we had at the dawn of gene therapy in 1999. So if you do the math, and we don't need to really walk through it, but if you did full body delivery, which is kind of a worst case gene therapy situation, you've got this large number of cells, a trillion, and then you've got fairly small mutational windows assumed here for either tumor suppressive oncogenes, and it's diploid, and it ends up that you want around 2 times 10 to the 19th base pairs. The best, and this is not widely celebrated. I'm trying to celebrate this from another group, Keith Young's group, with whom we collaborated. They recently published the best known level of off-target, which is 0 off-targets in 3 × 10⁻⁴ base pairs. So even close to, well, it's better than, we don't know how much better than 3 × 10⁻⁴ base pairs it is. We're starting, our methods of detection of these off-targets are starting to fail us. But anyway, we'd like to do, this will have to eventually give way to large, either large animals or large numbers of small animals, and then eventually human tests. All that changes again if we can improve the specificity. So that's what's kind of almost off-the-shelf CRISPR from nature. You can change it in various ways. Theoretical, empirical, dose optimization, which happened at the dawn of CRISPR technology, was first applied to a non-bacterial sequence in January 2013. But then more recently, paired nicases and other paired dimeric nucleases messing around with the length of the RNA and the dose to result in many orders of magnitude improvement in specificity. Off the chart of that, this is already hard to measure. It's 3 × 10⁻⁴, so maybe 1,000-fold better, maybe more. If we could be, we're already where we need to be. Now, I'm just going to end this section on variants of unknown significance with a discussion of the most common disease, because the variants of unknown significance often happen in fairly rare, but also common. And the most common disease, one that all of you have probably, is this due to aging, and this Gaussian drops to such a low level that you can barely detect the tiny tail of it here, where between the ages of 110 and 120 are about 70 people in the world steady state. They pass on and they're replaced by other old people. But this is remarkable. These are some of them. We've been part of a consortium that's sequenced about half of them. And if, you know, I can see some smiles here. The lesson here is not that you should be smoking and drinking and eating lots of cake, but that they have lifestyles at least as bad as ours, and they may have some extreme alleles that help them out. So we'd like to study that. And in the meantime, we have many other ways of getting at potential variants of unknown significance, or variants that we might want to harness in various ways. And this is a completely different approach to the problem of rejuvenation or reversal of aging, where you do heterochronic parabiosis, where you suture together the circulatory systems of a young and old mouse. Don't try this with your kids. And you find factors, and these can lead that cause rejuvenation of the brains, the vasculature, the skeletal and cardiac muscle, and then you can use this super biological assay to get at more biochemical components. And one of the first ones and early ones still is TDF11, example of a protein and a gene that reverses many of these age-related problems. In addition to that, there's progress in using messing around with the telomerase enzymatic activity, and also with third category and many others that looking at mitochondrial homeostasis, you can influence this via small molecules like nicotinamide, which is actually quite expensive because of the way it's administered and how frequently you have to do it. It's prohibitively expensive so far. That could change. But an alternative way is to do gene therapy on the gene that sits upstream from it. Now, this is not the nuclease or genome editing that I showed earlier. This is an epigenetic modification. And in this case, we're taking something that's very close to this, the heart of this nicotinamide metabolic changes. So, for example, in mice, between 6 and 22 months, it drops by about a little over a factor of 2. And you'd like to be able to return that or get complete control over a wide range. So we carpet bombed the promoter upstream from the transcription start site of TFAM. This is in that pathway that I showed you. Hoping that some of them, knowing that the CRISPR activators and the CRISPR nucleases as well vary from site to site in the genome. And so you do your best computationally, both to avoid off-target, but also to maximize on-target. And since this slide was made, we have much better software that can avoid some of these low activity sites. But in any case, back then, back in the ancient days of CRISPR a few months ago, we would do it empirically, where we would basically synthesize all these different guide RNAs. It's very simple, it's just 20 base pairs, so you really can make hundreds of thousands of them. Doing 4 is no big deal. I don't want to be sounding heroic here. But you can see one of them is a lot better. One of the 4 sites we target is a lot better. We got a little over 47-fold activation of the TFAM gene using endogenous DNA. We don't even have to use real regulatory sequences. We can just make it up. This is regulatory sequences by putting in this completely synthetic transregulatory element that comes from bacteria called CRISPR. Anyway, we got a 47-fold effect, which has a huge impact on the E levels here. Not the 2-fold effect that you see during aging, but 10-fold. So we can dial that back down to 2-fold if that's the appropriate level. So this is, but that's a 47-fold effect. There are other cases where we might want to have more. And sure enough, Alex Chavez, John Deschain, and Sue Bora from our group set out to do that for a variety of reasons. One of them having to do, we were trying to do neurogenesis, and the kind of standard of the 5-DP54 activation domain fused onto this dead Cas9 dead with respect to nuclease, but live with respect to recognition of the genome. If you put on now 3 different activation domains that might bind to different parts of the transcription machinery, you get huge enhancement over just any one of them, and in this particular order is the maximum. It also gives a nice acronym, which we call HYPER, for the first initial of each of these activation domains. And as an example here, you can get a 20,000-fold enhancement of tightness. Tightness is not an arbitrarily chosen gene. It's the largest protein in the human body, and the largest gene, just the coding region alone, is 100-fold basis. So even if you put it on cDNA, it doesn't fit in the most viral vectors. Exosulfide, factor 25 from our favorite viral vector. But you can make endogenous sequences, and this is regulatory elements, and enhance it by 20,000-fold. And you can do many genes at once. So here we are doing 4 genes at once, where we just use one activation domain, or all 3 of them, DPNR, and you can get sort of 400 to 4,000-fold activation of 4 at once. Okay, so we now can engineer with CRISPR the genome and the epigenome. We now would like to begin to analyze that, or just producing big data from large cohorts. We'd like to be able to do that in a systematic way, where we're not throwing away data. You'll see what I mean by that in just a moment. So we'd like to collect data on all the major macromolecules, DNA, RNA, protein, and not just counting them or quantitating them, and certainly not quantitating them in a mixed cellular population, but determining the proportion in 3 dimensions subcellularly in a multicellular context. And we might call this epigenomic imaging, or fluorescence sequencing, which is what we generally call it. And the point is, the cells are not generally spheres; they're asymmetric, and they have an asymmetric distribution of proteins and RNA, both going outward radially from the middle of the cell and also along the cell. Here's an axon, a neuron, which is particularly asymmetric, but I think many cells in your body have this asymmetry. So you want subcellular localization, not just grinding up a cell and then scattering the RNA randomly on a sequencing flow cell, where you get all the sequence data and even can count it, but you've lost the 3-dimensional positions. So here are 2 human fibroblasts, which, and you can see the nucleus has this brighter circle in the middle, and each of those dots is a single RNA molecule, where we can amplify very lightly and compactly, so all the amplification stays in a really tiny dot, which is smaller than the resolution of the microscopes that we use. And basically during cDNA, we cross-link them and form a hydrogel, a polymer, which is rigid enough that we can address it over and over again, sequencing the same way you would for next-gen sequencing, but it's porous enough that the reagents can get in and out. And unlike next-gen sequencing, you might just image one layer. In this case, we do composable, where we can image a whole stack of layers all at once, and so it's very efficient in terms of the cycling of the reagents. So in principle, this could be even lower cost than conventional sequencing of single cells, because you don't have to count each RNA over and over again, because they're truly where they belong, and you have amplified and introduced bias. They're the right number, the right location, and because you're doing this comparable stack, you have less reagents and less manipulation. And here's some examples of the quality of data where we're looking at a fairly long messenger RNA from fibronectin from those same fibroblasts. It's over 8 kilobases long. Sometimes challenging to study such long cDNAs, but in situ it's not hard. And here you can see it's not completely flat, but we have good representation at every position in the cystogram, where these are reads on the y-axis. And this is the first experiment we did in fetal bovine serum, and we were a little concerned when we found that exon 25 was completely missing. All the other exons have some reads in them, but we pursued to finish the experiment. The experiment was a kind of a wound healing model where you scrape through it and change the media to epidermal growth factor containing media. And fortunately, at that point, we found quite a few reads from exon 25, and it was an example of a biological, not a technical artifact, but a biological alternative splicing, biologically significant. So we are in the process of scaling this, or extending this from RNA to DNA and protein. We have plenty of data on each of those, and also to increase the number of reads that we get per cell. Now, to increase the number of reads per cell, we have these 3 methods, and I'm not going to go into great detail about that. Molecular stratification is the most powerful of the 3, I think, because no matter what your resolution is, so the other 2 address resolution, no matter what it is, if you have one pixel or voxel that has the molecules interested in it, and you'd like to get multiple reads from it, by molecular stratification, you can do a sequence read, remove all that information, and then do it again. And so you can get multiple reads from one pixel, which I think is quite a cool trick. The super resolution, hopefully everybody's heard of this. You can get from sort of 400 nanometer at the diffraction limited to the order of 10 nanometers under good circumstances. And I think it even more that just brings a smile on my face. Rather than increasing the resolution, you actually just expand your sample. So we've been embedding samples in polymers like polyacrylamide, for instance, since the 90s. Certain classes of those polymers, like polyacrylate, will expand at low ionic strength, and it will expand uniformly in all 3 dimensions. And so your sample is now just plain bigger, and all the structure is maintained. And this is work from Ed Boyd's group, Synthesis and Science. So we've been collaborating with them for about a year on adapting this for SMC2 sequencing. And it has the advantage that you can use conventional fluorophores and comparable microscopes. And to see super resolution, you need to query each picture, each fluorophore, thousands of times so you get averaging, so you can find the centroid of that fluorophore. While with this, you collect at 1,000 times faster rates because you're just trying to find the fluorophore in a conventional way. And I just want to end on applying some of these concepts to another big data project, which is the BRAIN Initiative. This was, we were inspired to some extent by this Allen Brain Institute project a few years ago, where they did serial sections through the mouse brain, doing one probing of one RNA per brain slice. The thing that's inspiring about this is they made it clear that you could do this over and over again. They went through over 1,200 brains in order to get about half of the messenger RNAs represented and almost none of the non-coding RNAs. But the point is that they can do this over and over, and they can get these serial sections and reconstruct the brain. So that's the positive side. The negative is it's very hard to align these. You can align them for a given RNA, but two different RNAs coming from two different brains, and those two brains are exactly the same, even though they're from inbred mice. And so you can't do you can do a regional overlap where you go, this is the hippocampus, this is the hypothalamus, but you can't do a neuron by neuron. So we feel that the sequence sequencing method will allow us to do all the RNAs in one brain. You can same number of serial sections, but instead of 1,200 brains, you can do the same information in one. And we would call this like a Rosetta brain, because all the information is there. And so the big data problem becomes a much simpler problem, because the problem is not large amounts of data, it's the way that it's been done. And so if they're already integrated, so then you have pixel by pixel alignment already done for you. You don't need to make assumptions and skip over things. And that's the Rosetta expression analysis. And so here we have A, B, C, D, E. So you can take the expression analysis and they're perfectly aligned. You can do it on one brain. But if you're going to do that, you can do Rosetta expression. You might as well do Rosetta for anything else you might want to know about the mouse or primate, whatever behavioral system you're looking at. And so you can measure activity in a method I'm not going to go into right now, but it's a somewhat speculative technology where we're trying to encode the ion channel or the early messenger RNA activity into nucleic acid, so they can determine it later by fluorescence sequencing for behavioral measurements sort of done in a conventional way. We can get developmental lineage identifiers. These are barcodes that we can develop during the development of the organism. So each cell, as it divides, it causes diversity at these barcodes. And so each time there's cell division, you have two daughters that have slightly different barcodes, and it keeps going and going until, in the end, the entire mouse or other animal, every cell has its own barcode. Then you can use those barcodes to send them out, the synapse-specific RNAs, out to the synapses, and then every synapse will be marked as the barcode from cell 1, the barcode from the cell it's attached to. Anyway, so we put all these together, activity, behavior, connect, developmental, lineage, expression, A, B, C, D, E, and that's a real Rosetta brain. It's not just transcriptome. And some of these things are described in these, high-profile journals like Archive and BioRxiv. We're not ashamed to publish in preprints. And here's some of the numbers. The topic of the talk is big data. We don't need to go through all these numbers, but I think the point of these is not that they're dramatically big numbers. They're remarkably heights in terms of analyzing all these in one brain of a mouse and hopefully the other organisms. So I will, this is what we've been talking about. I'll leave you with this as we go into the session. Thank you.
All right, well, I'd like to thank you for really a fabulous talk.
I forgot to turn on my microphone.
And we can probably move over so you're not stuck behind the lectern. And I'm delighted that you talked about my favorite topic, especially at the end, all of the implications for this for most.
But yeah, we can start. So people have questions, just come up to the microphones. And I know that was a tour de force of an amazing amount given.
That was a really impressive talk. And maybe the one thing, since I'm not so computational minded, you drew a lot of curves showing Moore's law and how accumulation of data and knowledge works. If you had to plot the understanding on there, what would it look like?
So the question is, how would we plot understanding, and what would it look like? I would say that at the part of that curve where we were still on Moore's law, sort of in the 90s and beginning 2000, there were one or two or a handful of genes that were clinically useful and alleles. Most notably in 1991, the first few were in BRCA1 and BRCA2. And I would not claim that everything that they diagnosed in that company, which is one of the most mature ones, is accurate. accurate. They are still variants of unknown significance, but that number now has gone from 2 genes to about 4,000 genes that are in some sort of use. And for many of these, they're now orphan drugs, which goes a little bit beyond the standard to act therapeutic action. And then, of course, genetic counseling is used in many of these cases to reduce